Hi folks, this is Amit Sheikh. I have been working as technical consultant and solution architect in MS Dynamics CRM application and the platform. This is a series of webinars that I have been running regarding configuration and administration of Microsoft Dynamics CRM application and platform. So today's webinar is one in the series that we had, one from the series that we started from previous webinar about business units and user setup. Let's quickly take a look at the agenda and then we can move to the application. So today we are going to cover how to provision users in CRM Online and how to create the users through the administration process of Office 365. This process is a bit different from how you create users in on-premise version of the CRM application. So that's why we will take another webinar for another session for the on-premise version. We will also take a look at what makes difference when you assign security roles to users and teams, and how does it reflect when you have different constellation of teams in your application. And of course, we will, while discussing this, we will again touch upon the topic of why we really need teams. Then we, of course, will take a look at some security roles and basic configurations of security role, the prime concept and the components within each security role, how Microsoft has designed this. So having said that, let's take a look into the platform. So this is the home page, of course, the landing page of Microsoft CRM application, and I had provisioned this instance from CRM Online trial just today. My previous trial expired just yesterday, and but it really makes no difference. We have a CRM set up for us. So we move into the settings area and we end up in the security tab. Under the security, we see some options about configuration of business units, users, and teams. Again, referring back to the previous webinar, we looked at how the business units are created, teams are created, and users are created. So let's take a look at the users. Now, at the moment, you see 3 users in the system. I just created those users, and I will briefly look at how these users are configured right now. If I look at my own user right now, I am this user, and you will take you can see this is the username that has been assigned to this user from Office 365 when I instantiated CRM instance for myself. And having the user here, we can also see what roles are assigned to the user. So we can see this user is system administrator in CRM. Let's go back and take a look at the other user. One of the other users is, let's say we take a look at Alan Day. Now Alan Day, I do not think I have assigned this user any role at the moment. So okay, it's the system administrator role. I'll take away system administrator role from this user for a while to just show what difference does it make. Then you take a look at the other user. We have John Doe, and you see this little piece of information that users are administered through the Office 365 portal. That's what I was talking about in the agenda screen. This is different from on-premise to online. So let's see, what does Alan Doe have? Alan Doe actually does not have any role. We will give this a salesperson role. Now, John Doe does not have any role. John Doe has a role, and Alan Day does not have a role. And myself, I am a system administrator. Now, if I try to open this in another window where I could see. Yeah, I am going to open this in private mode so that I can actually log in as another user. So this is the home page or the login page, and yeah, so we remember that John Doe has a security role and Alan Day does not. So well, let's try to log in as Alan Day first. And Alan Day's user credential is username is Alan is this. I remember the password. Yeah, let's see what happens. When this guy logs in, he says, you need a Microsoft Dynamics CRM Online security role. You cannot even log in. Fine, no worries. We'll try to log in as okay. I just heard from one of our participants that cannot hear us. So I hope others can. So I'm continuing. Uh, okay, let's take a look at Toronto. And we will actually go to the same screen. Okay, I heard back again that the same participant can now hear us. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, so see, John Doe can log in, and John Doe, remember, John Doe only has salesperson role. So let's go to the same area and see settings and see security. In the security, we can, what do we see? We can see users, of course. And this guy can, of course, also see the users. But see, this guy is right now not able to assign security roles to any other user. Instead, the other user from which I logged in here, this can actually assign security roles to other users. So, and actually it can also create new users. So this is the difference, basic difference that you see. But this is the part where you actually have a user already in your Office 365 and you want to create that user as a CRM user now. Just like you have a user in your on-premise domain and you add that user as a CRM user on your platform. So how do you actually create the Office 365 user? That's really the key here first. So we have to first create a new user in Office 365 to add here. If I try to click here, it will just say, okay, you need to go to the portal and add users there. So we will go to the add user profile, let's add users, Office 365 administration portal here. So here we see how we can actually start creating users. This is like in on-premise world, you have a domain where you add users. This is somewhat similar, but of course with a lot more to offer. So we are landing on the Office 365 administration area. If you are a global administration of your Office 365, you can actually start creating users here. So let's see first my user. How can we first take a look at the user? So I search for my user, and yeah, I see that I'm a global administrator, so I can do it now. Let's go back and see another user. Right now we have John Doe, I guess. Yeah, John Doe has just user access, no admin access. And then we look at another user, Alan. Alan is a global administrator now, but this user does not have the permission in CRM to actually create users. So it has a global administration permission, but it does not have a CRM security role. Remember, we did not assign this person a security role in CRM. Alan does not have any security role. Okay, so Alan could not log in. But Alan is defined as a global administrator in Office 365. That does not make any difference as long as Alan does not have a security role. He cannot log in into CRM. So now let's just create another user in Office 365 and see what happens with that user in CRM. So we create a user, Peter Donald, and we create this user here, and we say United Kingdom, and we so this is the part where you actually provide a license. So this is like consuming a license from the number of licenses that you had licenses that you purchased from Microsoft. So you provide a professional license. This is a trial, so trial is configured to use only professional version of the platform. But if your subscription is different, you might be offered a different licensing scheme here. So you consume one more license. We have created 3, and it tells that we have only 22 left out of 25. We just save it, and yeah, I'll send the password to my email address, or actually I can say actually I want to not do this part. I want to go back, and user was added. No, sorry. Send me email at so now I will get an email as soon as this user is provisioned in Office 365, and then we will be able to log in. But before that, we have things to do in CRM. Remember, we have just created the user in the domain, that is Office 365. Now we go back to CRM portal, and being administrator, I look at the CRM portal. If the new user, see the new user is here, and this user, Peter Donald, there are some things that this user has to be set up in CRM as, so all of those notifications the administrators can see here. Now we actually want to give him a security role. Let's say I gave him a security role, sales manager. So now once I have the password, I will be able to log in. So but let's just move on to our next thing. So our next topic for today is what makes a difference when you assign security role to a user versus a team. Now, team has as we went through this part previous webinar also, team has a significant role in how you set up your business units. So for example, if you have a business unit for sales, there will always be a team with the same name, and that team will be created as a default team or within the same business unit. Now, a record by default can be owned by a user or a team, but if the team does not have a security role, you cannot assign the record to that team. So for example, if I look at this team is, by the way, the default team of the root business unit that we are in. So just like we assign security role to the user, we can also assign security role to the team. And we'll see that default team does not have any security role. That has some reasons which we can come back later, but assigning security role to this team will make it possible that this team can own a record. So for example, if we go back and we go to our accounts and we want to change the owner of an account, I open an account and we should be able to see the owner here. I want to change the owner to the team. So you can see by default all the users are available here where you can assign. But of course, you cannot assign it to Peter Donald, or I think it was Alan, who does not have a security role. Let's take a look at the teams. So if you look at all teams, there's one team for the business unit, and remember the team is created by default and it's the same name. If I try to add this, it should then throw me an exception, and actually that was a message that we just saw. Yeah. So yeah. So we cannot actually assign this record to this team because the team does not have a security role. Now if I assign a security role to the team, so we have a team here, and manage roles. Okay, I provided the security role of VP of sales. Now the team has a security role. I just, for the sake of clarity, I just refresh the browser. And okay, go back to the sales account, take an account, and then I say assign it to the same team. This should ideally work unless we have problems from the online instance. Now, remember which record we changed. This is Wingtip Toys. So Wingtip Toys is assigned to the team, and the other records are still assigned to the user. And that user is myself because I was the first user of the system, and then CRM Online imported the sample data when provisioning the instances. So if we go back to the sales and look at the accounts, so you see that LinkedIn, whatever that name of the account was, that account is not listed to me. Now if I change the view and I say active accounts, I will probably also see that account with of the form. So if I go back here, I see this one, and we can see that the owner has changed to the team. Now, if I want to search how many records have been assigned to this team, we can simply go in using our nice advanced find tool. So we say accounts, all active accounts, and then owned by. So you see only one account which we did the one before, where at the time when the team did not have the security role could not be assigned. Anyway, so that was the team part. But how does the security role get configured? That's something interesting and important to know. Let's go back to our settings area. security, we have a tab called security roles. Under security roles, you see that these are out-of-box security roles that system comes with, and each of the security role has some difference, of course, that's why it's there, but you can customize it to your needs. The best way to do it, which Microsoft recommends, is to take a security role and say copy role. So it's like you copy a file as another name of it with another name. So it says CSR manager copy, and then you can change the new role that you just created from the out of box role. So now CSR manager copy role. There's a lot to look into this, but let me give you a brief example of how and what all of these things are. So an entity, we start there. There are actually three dimensions, so to say. There is a dimension for the entity. Then there is a dimension of the operation that you are trying to perform on the entity. And then there is the dimension of the level of that operation. What is this level? That's interesting. Other two are pretty straightforward, that you have an account entity, you have a record of account that you want to create, or you want to read, you want to update, you want to delete, you want to append or append to. These are a bit special. We'll come back to this. Assign and share. Assign is simply just what we did. We assigned a record to a team. Simple stuff. Share is that you don't change the ownership, but you share your records with other users in the organization. Simple stuff, but can be configured differently for different needs. So what is the level? Level is very much based on based on the business unit of the owner of the record you're looking at. So if I can read a record, I can own it. Somebody can assign me that record and I can own it. And then I can create it, and then after creation, I can actually change it if I have this kind of access, bare minimum. So this will change my permissions. If I have a role for this, if I have CSR manager copy role, then I have the permissions to create records for myself of account. I have permissions to own the records of account entity, and I have permissions to change the records of account entity which are owned by me. That's where it makes a difference. If I change it to the higher level, that will change. We will come back. And I can only delete the accounts which I own. Okay. Then just park it for a while, append and append to. I can only assign the records which I own. And share, I can, well, this doesn't make sense if this is not like this. So these go hand in hand. So if I cannot read it, then I cannot share it anyway. So now what's the difference between the pie and the half circle? Half circle is business unit level. So remember, I am in a business unit of sales, and I have under sales we have two more business units. Let's say sales of North region and sales of South region. Now if I have permissions to read on business unit level, then I can only see the accounts which are owned by myself or by the users, or owned by the users in the same business unit as myself. For now, just keep it to the user. Team comes into picture also, but let's first understand that half circle means that the user who is trying to see the accounts can see the accounts which are owned by himself or the users in the same business unit. Now the same goes to the right, so I can actually now change also. The same goes to delete, and same goes to create. Create, we will come back. How does that affect with half circle? But read is read, update, and delete. Now what happens when I do this? That means actually very simple. You can now do both your level and the level below. So it's like a tree. So it's called parent child business unit, or in the documentation it's also referred as the. So this is basic, this is local, and this is deep. Now if I change this to full circle, then that means actually the business unit has my placement in any business unit does not make any difference for as long as account entity is concerned. So now I can see the accounts across the whole organization. Whichever business unit users have owned those accounts, doesn't matter, I can see all through. So that's actually where you have to be a bit more careful. People usually go by this and then restrict by other features, by teams. Or so now we actually also saw that a user who does not have a security role or a team which does not have a security role cannot be assigned a record. Now that was security role, but look at the definition of security role. It's by the entity, it's by the operation, and it's by the depth or by the level of the operation that you want to perform. And the level is defined by the record's ownership at the moment. At that specific point in time, who is owning that record and where does that person or the team reside. So if I have a team which owns a record and the team is in a business unit parallel to my business unit and I am not member of that team, then the security role that applies to the members of that team does not apply to me. So for example, if I have global read, but I am not member of a team which has the security role, then I will be able to read the record, but I will not be able to update the record because I am not the member of the team, and my security role says that I can only do it on my own business unit, on my own level, or on my own business unit level. So I cannot do it outside my business unit. So once you have to go outside your business unit to do some more operations on the same record, you configure your security role with more of the perspective of that the role will be assigned to the team, and that will then translate down to you having the same permissions because of being a member in that team. So this is quite an interesting and quite a complicated part of CRM. But once you start modeling it for your needs, you start understanding it a bit more. But remember, you have to first look at your requirements from users and business units point of view, where the users are placed and how the business units are structured. Once you have the structure in place, you can see, okay, what different kind of teams will there be for the needs. There might not be any need of a team outside your own business unit. You could simply do that by sharing or raising the level of assigned permission. Or you can actually, as you say, you can actually share it to the whole organization. That could actually mean that you can share a record which is owned by yourself, but the users who you share it with can also see it. When we look at the sharing concept, you'll also see that sharing has more to offer. So when you share, what does the person eventually get by share? Does the person or the team get to read, write, update, or delete, or just read the record which is being shared? That's also possible when you start sharing. It's out of box possible. So we need to look at append and append to. This is pretty interesting. This will make more sense if you know the one-to-n and n-to-one relations in database model. So append is like you are coming from a record and you want to make it, so to say, child of another record. I do not mean child in the way that parent-child relationship, which will eventually mean as cascade delete. No, not that. This really means that the record will hold a foreign key of another type of record. So for example, account being parented by another account. So the account that you want to make child of another account, that is being appended to a parent account. Okay, so you're going from child to out to above. So you are actually appending this record to something. You are appending a specific record to something. Now, don't confuse it with entity. Entity is whether append of the entity is available. So, for example, we just had an example of account and parent account. There could be another thing, that account has a custom relation. So you have, for example, you have legal entity. Now, legal entity is like the that represents holding company of child companies. Now, the holding company is not an account in your model. For example, it's not represented by account. It is represented by another entity. So, if append is available on account, that means that account, it will be possible to append any record of account entity to the legal entity type. So the other entity, which is called legal entity, or just name it legal, that entity will become parent for the account entity, and it will be possible to append accounts to legal entity. Append to is just the other way around. So for example, you have account entity which should parent another entity. For example, account parents contacts, account parents let's say profiles of accounts, account parent let's say addresses of account. So now that means that addresses have append, address entity has append on itself, and account has append too. As soon as you switch this on, that would apply across the board for accounts. That accounts it will be possible to append accounts to another entity, and it will be possible to append more records, more other type of records to account entity. So just remember that this is parent and child. So there's a question on the chat. In real world, does security role are customized? Security rules are customized for teams, business, or individual levels. Not individual levels. I would mean that you don't customize security role per user. You have a security role that is based on the roles that most of the people are performing, for example, and then you create that security role and assign that security role or set that security role on those users or the teams of the users. Business units do not own the security. You do not assign security roles to the business units. You just assign it to teams and users. And there's another question. In terms of pricing model, when an organization buys CRM Online, do they also get Office 365 part of the product? That's where I need a little bit more information for you. But what I have understood from CRM provisioning is that once you provision CRM trial or CRM's subscription, that goes with Office 365, and your Office 365 could then be connected to your domain through all the ADFS setup. So you of course get that part of Office 365 where you actually configure users, you add users, and then provision those users in CRM afterwards. That's my understanding also is, but I will get back on this question again. There's one more thing about security that I would like to specify here. There are some roles which are not by any kind of level, not by any entity. They are like you have it or not. For example, you have the permission to publish email templates. You have the permission to view order history and similar stuff. Then also in the sales area, you can see there are some permissions that you have or you do not have. Under business management, there is a feature for bulk edit. So if bulk edit is enabled, that means you can bulk edit any record where you have permissions to update. Remember, you are coming from a user's perspective. You're logged in as a user, and that user eventually has the edit permission on a record. If that permission is enabled, or that permission is granted to the user through any security role, then bulk edit will be enabled also if this bit is switched on. So it applies a little bit same to the others. Read license info, reparent team, send invitation, reparent user. Uh, I well, you can actually reparent user by, there's another thing called managers that you can actually look at, and you can actually change business units. A lot to learn in this area again. So this we can explore as we go along. And then there's a part of the custom entities that is the most interesting area for myself, at least. This is where you start customizing your CRM for your custom needs. For example, that I just quoted about legal entity being parent of the accounts, holding company, which is not an account, so to say, in your system. You don't make any sales with that account, but you still maintain that in your system. So you create that much the same as account entity in the system, but it's just a different type of record. So whenever you look at your requirements, you see, well, I need some custom entities and I need some custom fields in existing entities. That's where you start customizing your system. We will come back. This is a huge area. We'll come back to this later. So I think for today's session, we are good to go with this piece of information. This is still very basic. We have a lot to cover in forthcoming sessions, but I think this provides a good starting point for learning security roles, configuring security roles, and assigning and playing around with the teams in using security roles. So for now, I will say we are on the track, and we have more to learn on this side also. So having said this, I will conclude today's session, and I hope we will continue later on. So thank you, and bye-bye.